On day 12, we leave Tok, Alaska, and make it to Fairbanks. It's only 3.5 hours and 200 miles. And then day 13, we leave Fairbanks and make it to the Arctic Circle and back. The round trip is 390 miles and about 9.5 hours. This is what 4 a.m. looks like in Fairbanks. It's this bright all night long. We're about ready to eat, pack up, and hit the road for the Arctic Circle. We were feeling pretty good leaving for the Arctic Circle. We headed out about 4:30. Because we had such an easy day going from Tok to Fairbanks, we were well rested. We spent the afternoon yesterday changing oil on Zach's Tenere in the parking lot of an O'Reilly's auto parts store. There was a lot of running around because we had trouble finding the right oil, and we weren't able to find a filter, so we had to just reuse the filter that Zach already had on the bike. So just a lesson to anybody who's planning a long trip like this to northern Canada or Alaska. If you need to change oil, you might want to bring your own filter and oil. We had great weather the whole day. Couldn't ask for anything better. And the first section of road was paved up to the Dalton Highway. We did see other motorcyclists who were making the trek up to either the Arctic Circle or Purdue Bay. We met a group of Harley riders who were on big baggers running street tires that were going all the way to Purdue Bay. They definitely had more guts than we had. I knew there was always work being done on the Dalton Highway, but I didn't anticipate the amount of road construction we were going to hit. But it did give us a chance to meet a fellow motorcyclist from Vancouver who was making the same trek that we were. The fun really started when we finally made it to the Dalton Highway. Zach left his helmet on for this picture because the mosquitoes are everything that everybody told us it would be. They were horrible. I'm just going to nerd out here a little bit on the 360 camera. The stabilization is amazing. It looks like we're traveling real smooth, but if you take a look at the phone on the motorcycle, it's shaking so bad that we eventually had to take it off the cradle. It kept wanting to fall off. The Dalton Highway is a 414-mile road that was built in 1968 and completed in 1969 to service the oil fields in Purdue Bay. It's difficult to describe the condition of the road because it changed so often. There were small sections that were paved, but they tended to be the worst, the biggest potholes to watch out for. So even though you could drive at 60 or 70 miles an hour, you just couldn't because the potholes would just eat your tires. The gravel seemed to be the easiest to ride on. There was a lot of washboarding and moguls, but at least you didn't have the massive potholes to worry about. But at least we didn't have to deal with wet roads. The Alaska Department of Transportation lays calcium chloride on a lot of their dirt roads, and when it rains it turns into a very slippery mess for motorcycles. As I mentioned earlier in the video, We were planning to go to the Arctic Circle and then come straight back to Fairbanks rather than drive on to Coldfoot and then to Purdue Bay. There's a couple of reasons why we decided to do that. We only intended to go to Purdue Bay if conditions were right, and it turned out that it was going to be raining the next couple of days up in Purdue Bay. The second reason was that we found out the World Eskimo Indian Olympics were going to be held the next day, and we thought it'd be really fun to be in Fairbanks when that happened. A third reason that we didn't even know about was that Zach's bike was about to blow a fork seal. So it was nice that we were done with the Dalton Highway when that happened. By the way, did I mention that we ran into some construction on the highway? And more construction? 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 But you have to learn to take it in stride.
I'm just sitting on your front porch, wondering how could I be so far from my home. And my mind is somewhere else, but when I find it, I'll patch up where it's been blown. Now I'm just floating on the breeze, and I feel I'm falling like these leaves. I must be cornerstone. Oh, but when I reach that ground, I'll share this peace of mind I found. I can feel it in my bones, but it's gonna take a little time for me to set that parking brake and let myself unwind. Shine that light on me. I'll sit and tell you my stories. Shine on me, and I will find a song. I will sing it just for you. And now I've been moving way too fast on the runaway train
We eventually made it to the famous Yukon River Bridge. The Yukon River is 2,000 miles long, starts in British Columbia, goes through the Yukon Territory, and into Alaska. We would eventually cross this river 5 times during our trip. Just past the Yukon River is the Yukon River Camp, where many people stop to fill up, eat, and get ready for the next leg of their trip. Our plan was to fill up with gas here, head to the Arctic Circle, and then come straight back. Unfortunately, our plans didn't pan out because the Yukon River Camp doesn't open until 9, and we had gotten there at about 8. So we did some quick calculation to see if we could make it to the Arctic Circle and back on the gas we had left in the tanks. Even though we didn't have enough, we did plan ahead and had a couple of 1-gallon gas cans full, and with that we were able to pull off the round trip. So after 2 weeks, we finally made our destination, the Arctic Circle. Zach wondered how many people actually live north of the Arctic Circle. So when we got back to Fairbanks that night, we did some quick Googling, and it turns out there are 4 million people who live north of where we were at that time. 99.95% of the world's population were south of us. As adventurous as we felt, it was nothing compared to the man we saw bicycling his way only a few miles south of the Arctic Circle, headed north, probably to Coldfoot and beyond.